Lamar on that golf life, Greg on that golf life, Dev on that golf life, we on that golf life. When we come together, you know who we are. You don't know? Yeah, you know. We're on par.
I'm Christopher Cowherd, EDD. I'm an educator. I've worked overseas for the better part of 12 or 13 years in a variety of schools, starting in Spain, then moving to China, and then to Bangkok, Thailand, a short stint back at the United States, and then now Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Oh, you gotta choose your shot. I think you're gonna choose one that's 123 yards away. Alright, go ahead. Stinger. More balls.
I think there was this idea that someday I'd go out, experience the world, run a business, do something, and then as a retirement job, become a teacher and just talk about all the things that I'd learned. But like very soon after I graduated college and I was working in New York City, I didn't like the job I was working at. So I decided I had been working at a summer camp for years. And I decided to quit my job that year after I graduated college and go back to summer camp for another year. And at that point, I realized I really enjoyed teaching and working with children. And my first thought was like, how do I get summers off every summer so I could go to camp? And I'm like, oh, you got to become a teacher. But basically at that point I just said, well, maybe I should just become a teacher now rather than waiting till the end of my career. I made that shift pretty much a year or two after graduating college. And then I wasn't in the classroom at first. I was in the student life office and I was in an admissions office, lived in the dorm because I went to a boarding school. Working at a boarding school made sense. So that was where I started. And then from there, it just sort of continued to evolve as long, the more and more I learned about working in schools, my roles started to evolve. So then I became a classroom teacher and eventually decided to become a school administrator. So, it all started with, for the most part, working at summer camp, but, spending 8 weeks straight, working at camp with kids. Most of the kids I worked with were sort of middle school age, 11 to 13 years old. I enjoyed it so much, I said I should just do this for a career. And that's the way it went. That's how I started in education.
You are the fairway, and it says you're 210 yards from the hole. Yeah. It works. Oh, yeah, it's in there. I got one for you. This club just works. Look, I missed it. I killed it. That's why I love it. It's so forgiving. Yeah, now you guys are 88 yards away. Now we're 123. 50-foot putt. Oh, hey! Get on the green. You got 60.
I got you. My 60 from Goodwill, so I got
So that one's gonna be a probably game two. I think once you're on the green. Yeah, because you're not actually hitting through sand. Like, it's not the same. Auto putted two, so it's supposed to be two putt.
I started working at summer camp in like 97 to 2002. In 2003 is when I started at my first boarding school. I did 3 years there, 4 years at another boarding school. And at that point, that's when Sheila and I decided to move overseas to teach. So we taught here for 7 years. And that was in 2009. And we've pretty much been overseas the whole time. We came back for 2 years during COVID, and then went right back out once everything started looking nice again. Interestingly enough, most of the schools that I worked at, besides what would be the obvious, which is the fact that international schools aren't populated with Americans, and they're not in the United States. But besides that obvious about sort of that cultural difference, most of the differences were structural in the sense that, like, well, I worked at independent schools here in the States, and so they didn't necessarily have to follow what public schools were doing. Independent schools in the U.S. could just essentially do whatever they wanted. So most of the schools I worked at, the bulk of the students were from, not local nationals. So the big difference with that, knowing that they're not Americans, also means that there's different curricular focuses as well. So, like, we wouldn't bat an eye learning about American history, but even in an American school, but overseas, you can't even really pick a country. Like, you can't really pick a country to focus on because the kids are from everywhere. And so you really, what you could do, and this is actually what we did in a couple of schools, is we did focus a lot on what it meant, for people to learn about the nation they were living in. That was important, but not with the type of depth we would have in a U.S. school, which meant that, like, rather than being an expert in, like, I taught history. So while I felt like at the time I was an expert in American history, I actually need to learn in order to successfully teach my history classes, I needed to learn, like, Asian history, African history, and European history as well. And so that meant that there was a broader approach to teaching, and not particularly deep. But we did give students the opportunity to dig deep in their own countries if they wanted to. One of the other differences too is just sort of, as a teacher, the community all surrounds school. Everything that happens when you're overseas, the school is the center of your life and community because it's the only reason you're there. So life outside of the school tended to be with all the same people too. So that was another interesting thing about living overseas. But then, of course, like, you have teachers that come with a variety of backgrounds and experiences from other countries that sort of also blend. And at least in a couple of places, while I believe American education as a whole is probably the best in the world, there were people who didn't think so and who didn't like the idea of an American education, which also was kind of weird. So sometimes when we brought up, this is what we do in the States, like, people didn't want to do it because I don't know why. There was just a bias. At least 2 schools I worked at that were American schools that had many American students. Using American curricula there wasn't that big of a deal, but to do it at some of the more international ones where Americans were a smaller percentage of the school, they tended to like us to look outside of the United States for our curriculum.
this way. It's hard to as hard as that was, there's no way that just went 100 feet. Oh, look, it's got that back step. Probably back step. Under it.
I got under it.
Had to. How did it feel? Let's watch. Get up there.
That's not always how I
The other one, I said that before, I was standing too close. It sounded like you just
I take ground first.
yeah.
Get one.
Celtics win.
Dang.
What, you want the Pistons to win?
Yeah.
Oh no, I want that. I don't want the Celtics to do it.
You get that twist. I actually thought Detroit was gonna have a they got a roster. There you go. There you go. Get there.
Stop.
Yeah.
Oh, you said stop.
That's it. Nice.
Yeah, it's always good when you haven't practiced. That helps a lot. I want to see it. Look at it. Look at it. What do we do? Are we both? No. I'm only. Just like a lot of people, we kind of Sheila and I stumbled upon international education because we had met other people who had done it. And most of them suggested there are 2 or 3 organizations who are I want to say consultants, but they're job organization that connects international schools with teachers. The biggest one right now is an organization called Search Associates. And there's another one called International School Services. And then there's some smaller ones like the Global Recruitment Collaborative. There's another small one called Scroll. So there's 4 or 5 organizations who they're basically job posting databases. They host fairs throughout the world. International school job fairs start early. So the first one we went to this year was November 4th. And that was in Dubai. And then there are a few other ones that happen in the fall and into the winter. The 2 big ones that are coming up, there's one in Bangkok in January. There's a job fair in London in January. There's a job fair in Cambridge, Massachusetts in February, and then New York City. So those are the bigger ones around the world. Signing up for one of these organizations, going to their job fairs is probably the most direct or the simplest route. After a while, we stopped doing job fairs. We would apply to schools directly. But it took a while of knowing people and sort of being in the community in order to sort of know who to talk to and get your resume off the pile.
Everything in the Bible is easy to digest, and even more of it is harder to live out. But I want the word in my life. I'm hungry for it. Most people can't take it. I gotta stop it.
Good?
That note? And I'm hungry for more.
16 feet.
Break it down, switch it into beast mode, then make my stomach growl. Not too picky. Got a wide palate. Salad is iceberg.
That was when we did that at that one place, that other course. I was like, oh, it's just how obvious it is that my face was just open. And then I compensate, overcompensate. So that last hit was finally got it right. Right on. Bing, bing, bing. Oh yeah, because when I got on, it was like 3-putt. I'm like, I'd rather take my chances.
I have golfed in every country I've lived in. Spain, it was a little harder because it was more expensive and it didn't have a lot of money and you needed to get around with a car. But there were I played golf at 3 very nice places in Barcelona. One was just a par 3 course. It was 18 holes. It was absolutely gorgeous, but it was like an hour and a half away from where we lived. The other one, we played 18 holes a week or maybe 2 weeks after the Spanish Open, and they left the PGA tees up. So we played from the PGA tees. I don't know why. It was a terrible idea because we can't do it. So that was in Spain. When we moved to Beijing, actually one of the parents at our school owned the golf course, and they gave us a ridiculously low discount to play as often as we wanted. We just needed to show our school ID. So I had a regular group for maybe 4 or 5 years where we played every Monday or Wednesday. It was a great time. It was inexpensive. It was easy. We could get in, get out. Again, needed a car for that too, but didn't play nearly as much in Bangkok, even though there was a city course you could take the train to. It was a little bit of a walk. It was small. It was crowded. It was inexpensive. So I played there once or twice. They even had lights so you could play at night, but the lights were poorly placed. So like it was not even worth doing. In Addis, there is exactly one golf course in the whole country, and it happens to be right next to our school. So I have a regular group. We try to go every week, but we can't all make it. So I've golfed in all of these places. By far, Spain, of all the places, Spain was the nicest of the courses we went to. The course in Addis it's a course, right? Like, let me show you pictures. It's not a great course by any means, but it's inexpensive and it's the only one. So we enjoy playing there as often as we can.
But it's funny. It's like I wish they would make it look like on TV.
Yeah, we have to mess that a lot. We got the camera.
Oh, because see, look, it didn't go as far as I thought. It went up. I don't know, man. Let's go to the replay. Oh, look at that. You hit it square and straight. You look at it. I'm gonna look at it again if you can. Angles weren't bad. Like, I don't know what it was. They're gonna stay in. Too much, too ass. Go with the drag. Whereas people can't take it, I got a stomach for it. Can't just throw it up, it's word is settled in my tummy. And I'm hungry for more, so let's break it down. Switch it in the beast mode, then make my stomach
Really nice. You know what? Nice and easy. Just a nice and easy swing is what you
But
need.
still, 150.
Oh, come on. You would have did better in real life.
But you showing me something though. This is
Now look, see, I squared, my face was squared up when I hit it, right in the middle.
Yeah.
So good.
Drive around that.
Woo! Get through. Bounce. Get this stuff. Oh, you're way. Yeah, you are coming out today. Amazing. There you go. Look at that. Oh, okay. Oh, I saw it was water too. I'm like, here, I want to use that one. Yeah, look at your angle there.
I like that. Nice and easy. Simple.
And that should be, we've been saying that for as long as we've been playing golf.
Sometimes it is.
Over there, we're in. JR.
Oh, get over it. Oh.
I hit the ground first.
Yeah, nice little drawing.
But it was a nice,
That was nice.
triple swing.
Let's see what it is. I mean, you're actually not in the best.
Oh, man.
Wow. I did that. I did that. Nice. Oh, nice. That was really good. We're getting there. We're working our way.
Oh, man. Can't drive it.
Oh, yeah, you told me. There you go.
Wow, that sounded different.
Yeah. Much better. In real life,
That would probably go a lot further.
yeah, it sounded different. It did. Oh, right.
Oh, square right in the middle.
Yeah.
One of the best parts about choosing a different geographical location for teaching is just the opportunity to explore. You know, when we lived in Europe, we explored Europe. When we lived in Asia, we explored Asia. And now that we're in Africa, we're exploring Africa. So, you know, I think for us, the idea of just a place that's new and different and a place where we can have adventures and see new things and things that we've read about in books. Those are the things that, I mean, they're not the top of the list of our choices, but that's part of the reason why people work overseas is because they like being overseas. They like traveling, they like going places and experiencing new things. And for us, like the differenter, the better, as long as, you know, we're at a point now with a family, we want to make sure we can have all the things that we like to have. Like we could have a very rustic experience if we wanted to, but we don't really want a rustic experience. We don't mind an urban, you know. So we've lived in big cities. Barcelona, Beijing, Bangkok, and Addis are all, you know, 5 million plus people. So big cities is where we'd like to go because there are more opportunities there.
Like when you hit it right, you can hear it. It sounds like,
Yeah.
You got to let it go. You got to let it go. I already told you all I know. You got to let it go. You got to let it go. I already told you.
rise like a sight. Still, you have the power within you to control, see, and undo any reason this world was spelled out. Auto-corrected love is so no doubt. No more hate, no more guilt. The money was already spilled on the cross in the Middle East, in the middle of consistency. Always coming from the Almighty. We've been summoned to freaking reality. Time to let it go, talking for release. Even if you heard about it late like Tuesday.
I told you once, baby. I told you once what I know. You got to let it go. I told you once, baby. I told you once what I know. You got to let it go.
Let go of the past, get out of the world. Beyond judgment, 'cause our judgment for his son to make us all innocent. We've been lost, we've been found, we've been taught to conversations over our mistakes instead of connecting with God to replace our feelings of doubt and shame. Lost out, lost out in pain. He endured the pain so we can let it go. So letting it go is really what you owe yourself. So if you don't understand it, just let it go. Just let it go.
You got to let it go. You got to let it go. I already told you all I know. You got to let it go. You got to let it go. I already told you. I told you once, baby. I told you once what I know. You got to let it go. I told you once, baby. I told you once what I know. You got to let it go.
I got a wild I remember, all right, now I remember the thing we're supposed to do. I always twist my wrist when I go, which is why I come that way and have to twist it. So you just keep it
double bogey.
bend it instead of twisting.
70.
Off the rocks.
Nothing like being at home.
You almost did do what you
To
did.
help you realize how good God's been.
Turn that way.
Yeah, that feeling you feeling right
Go and
now.
strike.
Let's just soak it all in. Marinating in grace, so my faithful listen. Marinating in grace to get
Same
a
thing.
taste of
That's
wisdom.
it. Give him some oomph.
Marinating in grace to become
You
more
just say, oh,
forgiving.
I heard you
'Cause
say
when it's
We all
time
came up
for
short.
giving,
I
I'm
heard
a
you say,
little chicken.
You struck it good.
I'm marinating in grace. So I'm marinating in
Well,
grace.
curve is fine as long as at the moment of impact.
So
we ended
Because it
this.
bounces right off even if you.
Interestingly enough, when I think about the best experiences for the family, like our family has changed while we were overseas. So Sheila and I went over, it was just the two of us. So living in Spain was great for that first year because we were very mobile, we could go around. But then we had Ava while we lived in Spain. So that made living in Spain more expensive, even though Barcelona is just a wonderful place to live. When we finally moved to Beijing, now not only could we have more money and we could afford a lot of things, but we also, there's the first time we'd experienced having household help. So we had a nanny and a driver, someone to do all that housework and to take us places. And it was just so easy as far as that goes. China itself had some issues that made it harder to live. But then we moved to Bangkok, which is also, as far as like travel goes, like Bangkok was sort of one of our favorites. Like we loved going to the beach. It was so easy just to get in and around Thailand and that you didn't really need to go other places. But at this point now we had already had our second child. So it makes it a little bit more expensive and a little bit harder to travel. I would say like when it was just Sheila and I, Barcelona was great. Beijing was great because we had help with both of our kids. But now even in Addis, we have a staff of 5 people working for us. So that makes life a lot easier because there's just things we don't have to do anymore. And so experience-wise, I think that the current one I think it gets better every time. I think this is the best one when you add all the things together because now the kids are older.
They can appreciate the travel. We still get all the help. We're still making money. We're still traveling in all some really cool places that we've never been before. So like I think every time we make a move, it's with the goal of improving our lives. So we bought a house on Cape Cod 10 years ago that was designed to be our retirement home. It's sort of our investment. It's how we've been using our retirement funds, is, you know, building up this house. So we're for sure going to retire there at some point. But we're now thinking about maybe even getting a second place that's warm all year round, so that in the wintertime we can go to, you know, live in Hawaii in the winter and then come back to the Cape in the summer, or Virgin Islands or something, someplace warm, perhaps tropical, definitely with a golf course nearby, because I would play every day.